Okay, my last book review for the time being, uh, as in later this week, I will do some more hopefully, will be, Ulysses S. Grant's Personal Memoirs. Now, Grant writes in a very readable style. It's a very nice thing to read about, uh, to read. Um, so that's a huge plus in this book. A word of advice um, about his personal memoirs will be that in the 19th century, late 19th century, military memoirs were the thing to write, not presidential memoirs. So there's nothing about Grant's thoughts on his 2 terms as president. So he does cover it like in the last chapter, but that's not going to be very much. Um, Essentially, his narrative ends with the end of the Civil War. He does talk about his early life and his life between after leaving the army and the beginning of the Civil War, but it's very brief. He goes into great detail about what he did in the Mexican War and the overall things that were happening there. And the bulk of the book is, of course, over Civil War, the campaigns and battles he was in, and when he became commander in the East, he details what was happening in the West from an overview. A person who's really interested in military tactics and situations, this is a great book because it gives you an insight on stuff. Um, After reading Team of Rivals, this basically gives you better, which gave you overview of what was happening. This gives you a more in-depth view of things uh, with what Grant was doing overall. Now, I will say that it took me longer to read this book than the other books I've reviewed and posted today. The reason is because I read this right after Team of Rivals, and that was the mistake because because things that were covered in both books, because I just read it in one and was reading it in great detail in this one, um, is going over the same material, and so it's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Retreads the wrong word. Um, it was just the same thing repeated, and that was something I shouldn't have done. I should have read another book between the two. That way, there was time to get some distance, but still have in the back of your mind, so that way it was fresh. It just wasn't a good idea to read both back to back. Um, so that was my bad, and my advice to you: don't read two books on the same subject back to back. It sort of hurts, unless they're coming from opposing views. Then it then it then it can become, you know then it become good to do. And I've also learned by this experience about another series of books I'm reading, um, that I'm breaking it. I'm reading one and then something else, and then the next one in the series and something else. I'm then doing it that way because to me that's the best way to do things because of this experience. Um, I recommend this book. I mean, you might think it's big, but essentially, it's great detail. If you're into military history, Civil War history, American history, uh, or a fan of Grant, This is a book you should read or you should have already read. All right. That's this review. I recommend it, like I said, and so I will see you, well, hopefully you'll view more of my things later.